Welcome to a tutorial video on learning React. In this first video, I'm going to talk a little bit about installing configuring React. Now, the actual installation process is a little boring to watch and can take several minutes depending on the situation, the download speed, and a number of other factors. So we've skipped ahead a bit to this last bit so we can start to think about code, and I'll talk about the installation and configuration process. Now, when we're making a React app, we're usually making a website or something that will act within a web application setting. It could be in a mobile development or it could be a website, but it uses React in some way, usually working with HTML. So when we do that, the most very basics of examples, which is what I have set up right here, we'll use a similar setup to this. That is, somewhere in the code, this function render will be called as part of the object React DOM. Now, React DOM, part of the document object model, means it's going to render something and then put it somewhere. Those are the two parameters to this function right here. I have what I want to put and where I want to put it on the page. And then, when I run all this code using the start script in npm or yarn, it will then take all of my existing code, put it together, compile it, and make a website, and then run a development server if I wanted to show me that code. So let's go jump over to that and then I'll come back. So notice right here we have hello world, and it's running on port 300 on the local host. So it's development server running on the local host that started when I ran the script. I can show you that right here in a console window, but the text is very small and it's not easy to read. But the basic idea is that I set up a basic React example application. It installed everything for me, it set it all up, then I erased the initial files, and then I went back and created two new ones. And in fact, let's jump back to Adam so I can talk about that. I created this basic one, index.js, and another one, index.css. Those are the only two absolutely required files to do anything with React. The other stuff helps us do more things, but we absolutely need those two, and that's really it to get started. So when we're using React, as I mentioned, we have a single function that's going to act as the basis to kickstart everything else. This right here, the render, and this will become more important as I work through the series and talk more about how React does things. But everything comes back to this function. Now, the other thing I want to mention in this video, which may look a little bit different, is this is unescaped HTML. This is something very particular to React and how it does things, and I'll talk about why it does this in another video. But it's important to realize that as we work with React, we can start to mix in HTML and use it with JavaScript to do some very dynamic stuff, to create our pages and not have to worry about how we're escaping HTML, maybe we're combining together, or we're using template literals in different ways. No. React helps us shortcut a lot of that issues, and we can directly use HTML within the code itself. And again, I'll be talking more about that in later videos. But to get us started, the most basic of examples using the render function as part of React DOM, which kicks it all off and says, hey, in the page we're about to create, I want you to render this content. What content to render? This right here. Create a header 1, give it hello world, close the header 1, and where do I put it? I put it at the root ID. In fact, if I flip over here, we see that exactly, hello world, and the most basic of examples. Now, I want to encourage people who think, well, you didn't really go over how to install anything. Well, I didn't, because like I said, it's a little bit boring to watch and could take quite a while depending on your settings and a number of other factors. So I've included links within the description of this video about a blog post about to walk you through how to install that, how to configure it, and how to come back to this step. But I wanted to do an initial video just so we could start to think about some of the ways using React is different than working with a lot of other frameworks. The first of which is that we can start to mix in HTML, and the second of which, and what I've spent the most time talking about, is this render function right here. This is a central foundational part of using React, and it's going to be very important moving forward. Thanks for watching.